get beautiful.
Hey, this is Jonathan Mickles with the Strategic Multifamily Investing Podcast, and I have with me Nic. Nic, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Espanet?
Very good. That's great to get it right. Espanet is exactly right.
Cool.
Most people try to give it a little too much French flair or Espanet. No,
Well,
Espanet's exactly right.
Yeah, it could
Yes.
be. That's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you so much. We met on the Old Capital conference just a couple weeks ago. That when we're recording this is in late October of 2020, and you decided to say, hey, I'll come and join the podcast. Thanks so much for coming, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to visit with you.
Absolutely. So you've been quite busy since 2016 here, and we were talking just briefly about your experience. But before we get into that, kind of tell us how you got into multifamily. I think you were in healthcare before, right?
Correct. Yeah. My wife and I started looking at different ways, different places to put our retirement. We just didn't like the stock market, didn't understand it well enough. We felt like we were just passing our money off to somebody else to take care of it, and then couldn't really even, process what was going on with it, what fees we were paying. So we started down the road of looking at single family, and kind of almost had the paralysis analysis, where we looked and we studied. We had a child that had some health issues, and she's doing great now, but so that kind of paused us, and we got back into looking. And the more we dug, the more we kept hearing about multifamily. So we started, my first thought was there's individuals don't buy apartments. That's, big companies or REITs. So, but the more we looked into it, we learned, hey, this is things that, middle-class people, if you have a little bit of cash, and you can't get it, it's not a no money down type situation, but if you've got some capital that you can, deploy and put into it, you can definitely go about it. So we started learning more and more about different mentors and reading books, and we opted to go the mentor route, and that was I think very helpful. What's that?
Who was your mentor?
Brad Sumrock, and we're still part of his program for many reasons. They going through the program with Brad and the coaches, holding our hand on being able to purchase our first deal. And then also being part of the group. I'm not sure the number of people in it now, maybe 600 to 800 or so in the group that, we've raised the vast majority of our funds through the group, through the 3 deals that I have closed. That's, let's see, we've been raised just under $1.5 million on one deal, $2 million on another, and just under $5 million on the third. So, and a big part of that money is coming through the group. And a great thing about being part of a mentorship group is that the people that we're raising the money from, they know the language, they know the underwriting. We can show them our package of what we're presenting for the investment, and they'll have questions about how we got to certain things, but they understand 99% of it. Because a lot, it's almost a foreign language if you haven't been, even coming from single family side. I think there's just terminology that you don't that you may not be aware of. And so it's great having those educated. I mean, everybody's educated, but people that understand the multifamily acquisition process, because the questions are much more reasonable. Because even people that are part of other programs, because within Brad's group you can fundraise through any contacts, and we just see the difference in the questions. And a lot of that may be that they're used to our analyzer.
So that's very interesting. I want to come back to that about the fundraising piece, but a couple of good things again for people who are listening and maybe thinking about multifamily, thought about multifamily. Listen to his origin story. He started looking at single family homes, but then decided to actually jump directly into multifamily. Because sometimes what people have learned is that they can't do what they actually want to do in terms of an income through just single family. I mean, they would have to have a bevy, a portfolio of single families in order to do that. Was that the same thing for you, Nic? I mean, you guys, it's just the numbers didn't work out. It's a lot of doors.
The numbers, and yeah, exactly. And you start looking at it. A couple of things why multifamily. One was the scale. If I own 10 single family homes scattered all over DFW, I've got to run around and take care of them or pay a property manager 10%, 10%, somewhere quite a bit more than we do on the multifamily. We're around 3 or 4% a fee for a multifamily a property management fee.
But you have payroll,
so,
right? You have payroll. You have people on payroll.
Yeah, plus payroll. Yeah, we do the payroll on top of that. So that is offset too. But it's still they do it. And one of the great thing, and I didn't figure this out until I started learning more about multifamily, is we are in charge. We have better control over the value. You could buy a single family home and make it the nicest house in the neighborhood and show that you're getting $2,000 a month in rent. But when you go to sell the property, if somebody wants to buy it with a loan, it's going to be sold off the comps. It's what the neighboring properties are. Even if you've made it a beautiful home and it's showing, now somebody may want to come in and pay cash, but it's going to be hard to sell it for more than what the comp show. Whereas, with an apartment, you can, if you increase the NOI by either improving your income or decreasing your expenses, that's how the value of the apartment is set, because you're buying a business really more than real estate.
And for everybody else that's listening, the NOI is the net operating income. And
correct. Yes.
I just always, every now and then, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I want to make sure that the rest of the people who are listening to us, hear and understand that. So
exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're that's great. I'm bad about using some of the
it's
acronyms.
Okay.
So yeah,
but see, that's the reason for being a part of a group, because if you're part of a group, you can just throw out those kind of words and you really, really, truly understand what the other person is talking about just instantly. So as he said, I'm paying 3 or 4%, management, I'm knowing, he really is also paying payroll, because he probably has units that are over maybe 50 or 60 units, maybe 100 units where, there's no need there may be a need to have a property management firm on site or an office on site, where if you're around 50 or 60 units, you may not necessarily need to have management. Am I talking all right, Nick? See,
no, you're exactly right.
This is the community. Again, another thing that you pointed out is that you got some mentorship, right? With was it Brad Summerrock, right? Summerrock's
correct.
And so, my mentor is Michael Blanc. So I went through his mentoring program, still in it, as a matter of fact. And you do have access to all the other students and other people at different levels of mentorship that they're partnered with, that you can then go out to and develop significant relationships. And some of them, I know, there are a couple of, at least from Michael's group, offshoots on Tuesdays and Friday nights. They're free groups that people can get on and begin networking and begin the process of developing that pre-existing substantial relationship, right? That the SEC is looking for. If you're trying to do a SEC Reg D 506B type offering, which is most of the offerings that are out there for syndications to buy apartment buildings. So you mentioned that that you were raising money through the mentoring group. How is that set up, or is that proprietary to Summerrock's group? Or
it's not proprietary. We do networking events. I guess if I said we're raising money through the group, that's not technically not true. It's with people that within the group. Yeah. Because Brad, they are very careful not to say that they're not promoting deals, but we have every other month there is a bus tour, typically in Dallas, but there's been one in Phoenix, one in Houston, but COVID has kind of thrown this off, so we've done virtual ones. But they meet in usually in Dallas or the mid-city, somewhere in DFW, and I think recently we've had between 5 and 7 of the large buses. People, we go onto properties that other students own, kind of see what's going there, and then sometimes we'll even go on a property that's for sale. We've got enough of a relationship with the local brokers that they'll bring us on to a property that's for sale. So you think of a B or C class apartment with about 300, 400 people showing up on a Saturday morning. Most of the tenants are like, what on earth is going on? What are these people walking through our middle of our community? So it's kind of funny, but to raise money, that's where you go and you meet people on these bus tours. When the group was smaller, we would go to a local bar and grill, but it got too big. We just overwhelmed it. So now they rent a hotel room, almost like if you were having a wedding reception, inside a hotel ballroom type thing, have a sit down dinner and then a cash bar or tea, coffee, and people just usually probably goes 3 or 4 hours.
But that's the best way to do it. Number one, yeah, it's a captive audience, is what they say, like shooting fish in a barrel, because everybody there is all interested, number one, in multifamily, number one. It's not just commercial real estate, meaning you're looking at industrial or office. You're only looking at multifamily, and you're interested in doing something probably within, DFW or within the local market. And then you can really get with people who, you have a connection with, because I'm learning in this business, connection is everything. It's almost like you're getting married for, 5 to maybe 10 years, depending on how these deals are. I mean, you're going to be connected at the hip, so you should like the person that you're with. You should have the same values, that the other persons have. And so these are good opportunities to do that. And again, in the age of COVID, a lot of these things have turned virtual. So hit up Nic. Hit me up. We'll share with you some of the free opportunities, or maybe even share with you how you can possibly get with the coaching programs that we're in, so that you can get connected as well. So let's get down to some of the, well, let me ask this question. This is very interesting, because you mentioned that you and your wife, and I looked at your website, and you and your wife are in the business together. And I believe she was a sales professional herself. How is she liking now multifamily? Because I'm always interested in that partnership.
She loves it. I mean, she helps more on the tax side. That's kind of what her niche is. She recently started teaching in our children's school, just part-time, one science class. And before, she's been a for 14 years, and then went back and teaching, but she helps with that. She sees the opportunity it's affording our family, and the financial freedom it's going to give us eventually. Right now I'm still doing a little bit of my therapy work during the day. I'm a contract with that. So, but it's not something that it's not a passive income, and neither is syndicating right now, but we're going to build, as we get more, and we can, at some point hire somebody to do some of the stuff that we're doing, or, be more, just take a passive role after we've done it long enough. And then we invest in other people's deals that are going to be feeding passive income back to us. But no, she loves it. She does some of the networking stuff. That's now that our children are getting old enough that we can leave them a little bit longer, but it's, she plays more of a support role, and then she really got involved in how to structure our taxes. She deals with our tax consultant and our CPA the most on how to set things up, and, so we can capture as much of the bonus depreciation or cost through cost segregation.
Oh, that's great.
We can. So yeah, that's something if your guys are not done or not aware of, it's great. We paid zero income tax in 2018 through our cost segregation and bonus depreciation.
So this is really good. This is really good. I have been in some very interesting conversations around that conversation of paying zero income taxes. And I'm sure in the country, we have a lot of debates, but the thing is that our tax system and our tax laws are structured such that you can take advantage of them in a positive way, right? To be able to pay zero tax. Okay, so let's kind of break this down. You mentioned cost segregation, and what was the other one that you were doing?
Bonus depreciation. So that's I don't know if you guys have done a video listening to Tom Wheelwright.
Tom Wheelwright. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna look him up. I know
Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, okay. Robert Kiyosaki, CPA. He says the tax laws, loopholes, kind of, it's I think a term that's thrown out there to make people think you're doing something under the table. He says tax laws are written to incentivize actions or to, just like a pack of cigarettes now, it's probably half of it is tax, because they're trying to discourage people from smoking.
Is it an incentive?
The government needs investors, business owners to go out and provide workforce housing or affordable housing. So they set the tax law to where people that do that, there's incentive to do it. So it's,
so are some of your projects LIHTC? Are you LIHTC projects or?
No, just anything, right now, if you're providing housing, the way that cost segregation works is you have to have an engineer come out and analyze your property, and they basically, you can depreciate stuff anywhere from 27 4.5 years to 5 years and a few stages in between there. But the engineer comes and counts every light socket you have, every light fixture, every sink, and then they give you a big report. And right now you can normally you can do some of them in 5-year time period, some in 12, 27 and a half. There might be a couple others in there. But with the way the truck is set up now is you can compress all that, take all that depreciation in your first year of ownership. And so we're looking at, an investor may get 60 to 80%, say $100,000 investment may get $60,000 to $80,000 back in bonus depreciation that they can have removed from their income tax. Now, if you're not a real estate professional, you can only capture 20 to 25,000, I think is the number, but you can roll the rest over.
If you're passive, you can only take.
But if you're a passive and you're and you do 750. Now, first of all, I'm not a tax professional or CPA, so
neither am I.
Don't take this as your advice here. But if you do 750 hours of real estate a year and it's more than your primary source of income, by the IRS standards, you're a real estate professional. And so you don't have to have a license. You don't have to have a certificate. But at that point, you qualify as a real estate professional and you can capture 100% of the bonus depreciation in that year. And anything you don't use, it carries over, I think, for 8 years.
So let's just take some simple math. Say you made $100,000, in a given year. And now all of a sudden you get that $60,000 bonus depreciation that we just talked about, right? And, through cost segregation, where again, you go in, instead of doing the 27 and a half years to depreciate the building, you do it in 5 years, or you do it in the first year. Now that's $60,000 off of that $100,000. So now you're only paying tax on $40,000. Now, if you're married and you have kids and dependents, you now take on those other deductions. And then you have the other standard deductions that you have, or if you're itemizing, and then you have business expenses. So you, again, can be in a situation where, you have $40,000 in other deductions that you have. Now you're paying no tax. So it's a legal thing.
Congress wrote those laws to incentivize investment in housing.
Yeah.
And so it's become politicized, unfortunately. Yeah. And we'll see if now that there's more of that news out, if Congress tries to change something, but we'll see. Hopefully not, because there is a housing shortage in our country, and
very much so.
And I'd rather the government incentivize somebody to go out and provide housing versus them trying to do it themselves. I just think we've seen what government housing looks like, and I don't think anybody wants that mass produced.
So this is a very interesting thing. I mean, no matter what your political affiliation is or isn't, please understand that there are these tax laws that are out there that incentivize, as we said, investors to do what they do. And, people like Nic, who are invested in multifamily housing, myself, we're out there to not only help others to be able to create wealth in addition to ourselves, but as a result of doing that and providing a great home for people to live in, we're additionally incentivized with these other laws that are out there. And I think it's important to take full advantage of them. Again, that gives you more, resources that you can then do the same thing. You can continue to grow your business and your impact.
A very good point, because we come in and try to we're buying not always, but somewhat sometimes distressed properties, and we want to come in because. And granted, I will admit some of it's at our benefit. We want to improve the property, so we're making a better place for people to live. We have three bedroom apartments on many of our units, and so we have families that live there. We put in a nicer playgrounds. Deal we're looking at now. We're looking at, it doesn't have a playground or a fitness center, but we don't have a place to put an indoor fitness center. But we're looking at repurpose. It had 2 tennis courts at one time. They loved tennis courts in the 70s, but nobody plays on them anymore. There's already a couple of basketball goals in one spot. We're going to turn the other side into a it's a pour in place pad, like you, instead of having the chipped wood mulch that gets scattered, it pours in place. So it's a solid, maybe 4-inch cushy pad.
Yeah.
And then, but it's real sturdy. Playground goes over the top of that.
Yeah.
On the tennis court. But this is a cool part. There's now outdoor exercise equipment, like an elliptical, a bike, I think is one of the things. And then some like chest press but it's levers that use your body weight. So we can put the exercise equipment around the playground.
Wow.
So the families, the parents can do the fitness stuff while the kids play on the playground. So
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a picture of that. I
Google and I can share it, but I found it by looking for how to repurpose tennis courts. And
wow.
That came up. It's a company, I think, out of Alabama. It's either Alabama or Georgia that has done it, but it's really neat. So we're excited. That's something we're looking at. We don't know exactly how we're going to configure it, but we're pretty sure we're going to put that in our current deal that we're going after.
I think that'd be awesome, man. I think that's a good idea, because playgrounds, right? You're taking your child to the playground. Maybe there's a dog park. One of the properties that we were looking at just recently has a dog park next to the playground. It'd be great to also have, that as well, where you could say put the dog park that has a fence around it, let the dog run, have the child run, and then mom, dad is doing exercises at the same time. It'd be a great opportunity.
We're excited to see how it's the reception of it, but we think it'll be good because.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine. I was wrapping up.
Yeah, so I want to ask you a difficult question, and please, you can beg off. It's a slightly different question, because when we talk as investors of walking into, areas, that may be distressed, it's good for us because, number one, we do get a deal. Number two, we can force appreciation. Number three, we can improve the property and the conditions for the people who are there. But ultimately, number four, what happens is the rent does go up, as a way of being able to pace with the market, right? And the word gentrification comes to mind. So I am, in that situation where, how do you feel about that at this point in time, and that word and what you and your company are doing? Because you're in Abilene, Texas now, right?
Yeah, we're in Abilene. We haven't bought in many areas that were in back. One, we don't, that's, I heard one guy say rule number one, we don't buy in the hood, because it's just, rougher area. You get a lot more turnover, but
that's a Summerrock question, right? I mean, a statement.
Yeah, well, not so much. It's actually a guy named Michael Becker that used to work. He was on Old Capital. Yeah, that's Michael Becker's rule number one. I think he hosted the lender panel. But I'm a property rights person. If somebody, if you want to buy a property and this is, some people's sensibilities may be injured on this, but if we're set up to where, if you own a piece of property, I think you can do what you want to with it. You can put a parking lot, you can put a museum, you can put a playground, a library, and I don't know that it's anybody's spot to. I don't think the government should come tell you what to do with it, but I also think we also are charged with taking care of our community and helping. And we are blessed to own, to have the ability to buy apartments and have some influence in a neighborhood. And so I know it's challenging when you're driving people out that may not, that can't afford the new areas. And we haven't had that as an issue. I'm trying to think how we, if I had the opportunity to buy in an area that was gentrifying, I would do so, but it would be, especially when we're syndicating deals, if I'm taking other people's money and I'm not trying to get them the best on their investment, then I'm not doing my fiduciary responsibility as the syndicator to take care of it. So, I think it's a touchy subject. That's got to be a challenge. And I can appreciate the need to help with relocation if that's an issue. I know there's some areas here in Fort Worth where I live that they're building some Class A apartments in some areas that probably were not very desirable 2, 3, 4 years ago. And how I know that I think those builders, that would be more in a development, somebody that's doing development are helping with relocation of some of the folks from that area. But I don't know if I gave an answer without.
Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We're back. So you all didn't know it, but we had about 5-10 minutes that I had to step away for a minute. But we're back and we're having a good conversation because, the tables were turned with me in terms of what I thought about gentrification. And I said it's a very touchy subject for me because I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. And I noticed that in D.C. and in certain areas, gentrification has actually pushed, Black and brown out of Washington, D.C. It was known as, Chocolate City. And I mentioned specifically situations where there were older African-Americans who actually owned their homes, grow homes and things of that sort. And they just may have been late on a tax bill or something, and an investor swooped in, bought the taxes, and then evicted, the grandmother from the home. And Nick, you were saying that it may have been legal, but it was morally reprehensible, to do something like that. And did I get that right? I don't want to misquote you on anything.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we actually have an example where we were looking at going to the courthouse and buying from the tax thing here, and they have on the courthouse once a month, court steps you can buy at the county courthouse. And there was somebody that was a year behind, and my wife's like, I just feel horrible. This person. So she called the guy and said, your taxes are behind. He's like, oh yeah, they won't do anything. I pay them the day before the auction and get it done. So my wife was worried about this guy, and he was doing it on purpose. Like, I just pay my taxes the very last day. And so, that's something where you have, and I have probably surprisingly found that most people that I encounter in the multifamily world are they want to help people. They're not out to, yes, they are out to get wealthy and create independence, but not at somebody else's expense. There is a huge abundance mentality. There's a lot of pie for everybody to go around.
That's
and
good.
It's, I found that within our group that people help one another. Now, if me and somebody else are going after the same deal, we're going to hold our cards close to the vest for that little bit. I had another person, and I know them pretty well. They beat me on a deal. I called them up the next day. I said, hey, we put a lot into finding out why the water bill is so high, and you're welcome to all my research, because now that I don't have it, I want to see you succeed. And so I will give you all the data that we collected on what we think, why we think the water is so expensive on this property. And so, we shared the stuff we had with them. Because at that point, I guess in 2 or 3 years, maybe if they sold it, that information may have been valuable for me. But at the time, I was like, I want these guys to do well and do well for their investors. But, and I've had people hold my hand because, I was with it. I've been in Brad's group for a long time, but it took me almost 2 years before I finally got a deal. Wow. And we'd go to the bus tour networking events or other events, and people are like, man, try this, have you tried to, look at these numbers here, here's something that worked for us. So not only was I getting my batteries recharged by hanging out with other like-minded people that wanted to buy real estate, but they were helping out. And hang on a second, let me just.
Having an abundance mindset is probably one of the things that I would say for everyone out there. Making sure that if you're going to be working with anyone as an investor or as a GP, that's someone who actually is a general partner or in the management of a deal, or even as an LP, that they all have abundance mindsets. There should be a win-win. Yes, as a GP, as a syndicator, we have fiduciary responsibility to all those that invest with us, right, and that are a part of the team, that we make sure that we do right for them. But we mentioned before, we're using terms like these are homes for people, right? There is a shortage of homes that are in the market. We want to make sure that we are building home. It's not just we're out for our own benefit. We're out for everyone's benefit.
Yes, we want to provide value. Now it's going to cost something. We're going to raise rent, but we're adding playgrounds. We're adding improved safety. Fitness centers. We try to do something on our properties with 3 bedrooms that have children. We try to do a back to school activity. We had earlier this year during COVID, since we typically during the spring and through the summer and fall, we'll have some type of outdoor activity, tacos or sandwiches or something, but we couldn't do that. So we just gave out, now it was only Little Caesars, but we gave out a free pizza to every unit just so they could get for themselves. And we did, then last month we did snow cones. We had I don't know if you guys have Kona Ice, but it's a chain of snow cone trucks.
Okay.
And we paid for, everybody got a voucher. I can't remember how they worked it out, but each unit, depending on the number of people in their unit, got a coupon, for lack of a better term, to go and get one medium snow cone from the snow cone truck. So we want to do things like that. Everybody, I would be lying if I'm not saying part of that's to benefit us, because we want to create community so people aren't moving, but we want to keep safe. We want people to have relationships, so they're kind of watching over and have some ownership in the community, and things like that. But big thing is creating that sense of community within the apartment and making it a better place for people to live, and that is the feel good part. I mean, it feels good to give people checks too, but it feels good to give somebody a nice, safe place to live, especially if it's been a rough area, like the place where I don't think we were on recording there. You're talking about the guy being laid out. Nobody wants to walk out to their car and have passed out in the parking lot or in the grass. And so it's just, cleaning up activities like that, I think bring value, especially if you have young children that are going to be on the playground we haven't had this because Abilene has it, but I know other people that bring in tutors to their in their community center. So they have places for kids to get tutoring after school and help with reading and some of the basic school things to help lift these children up.
That's community. That's community. And again, I stress that it should be that you work with someone, or that you're in a place that number one has community, that wants to make sure that the place is safe. I think I was mentioning in my story, I was looking at a subject property, and I was encouraged to go look at the comparable property that is actually $100 more expensive than this property. And so I went and I saw one building out of their 15 or so buildings that was just broken, busted windows, everything. And I was driving in one of the parking lots, and there was a young man who literally, I don't know what was happening, he felt like he needed to lay down in the middle of the asphalt, just as if he was suntanning on the beach or something. And I had stopped my car, and I was like, "Are you okay? Is everything?" I was just, and it was just other activity that was going on that I was really concerned about. And I was like, "But this place is actually getting $100 more on average than the other property that I'm looking at. That's in much better condition." So that's something where we want to go back in and try to create community. Wow, this has been a lot. We've shared a lot. Thank you so much for taking on that challenging question. And it was just something that popped up in my mind as we talked about it. And a lot of times, you have people say, "Oh, they're just coming in and just take over everything." And some of us are not really just there to take over everything. We're there to provide value, in addition to receiving, a good benefit and check for ourselves. All right, so we're at that point in the conversation where we're giving people the boot. For those of you who don't remember, this is Red Boot LLC, right? This is the name of our company. And so we want to make sure that we give people the boot, not to get out of anything, not to get kicked out of your job or your relationship, but to get you spurred on to doing something in multifamily or whatever your goals are. So with that, Nic, what piece of advice would you give our listeners to give them the boot?
Get going. I would find someone that's had success. You mentioned your mentor. I've got a mentor. Find somebody that success leaves clues, and it does cost money to hire a mentor, but I think the money you spend on that you'll save so much more. If you go and try to buy an apartment by yourself, you're going to make mistakes. We in our program, and I'm sure Michael Blank's saying, they hold your hand as you're going through the purchase process, and to make sure you're not making those mistakes. They connect you with other reputable, either a lender like Old Capital, team that's done this, other people have used, and the price up front, like who's doing your SEC work and your contract work. So find somebody that's done it and follow them. And you may start with a book if you can do it, but just getting out and doing something. And taking massive action. And, and one thing that Brad Summer likes to say is ready, fire, aim. The time is never going to be perfect.
Yep.
You're never going to have all your ducks 100% in a row. Sometimes you just got to start taking those steps and have some faith that the next step's going to be there for you, and you're going to figure it out. But if you have somebody that's already gone down that path, you're much less likely to wander off into deep weeds that you don't need to be in. So, find somebody that you can follow.
Great. Thank you so much, Nic. Now, how do people get in contact with you?
My email is Nic, N-I-C, at Thrive Multifamily, so THRIVE multifamily.com. So it's just N-I-C, no K on my name. But email me. I have a Calendly link, and I wish I knew it off the top of my head. But if you email me, I'll send you a link to my Calendly. And that's the best way. I got little 15-minute increments set up on various days so we can chat. I'd love to tell you about my story, get to know about you if you'd like to be included on any of our future opportunities. Let you, we got to have that pre-existing relationship so we can start that process of chatting with one another and just start going. And if you're ever in the DFW area and you want to grab a coffee or something, maybe we could even do that. Same to you, Jonathan. And you're from DC originally?
Originally from the DC, but focusing on the North Carolina market currently. And so, when I get back to traveling and get down to DFW, I'll look you up, man. I'll check the next one.
Well, the Old Capitol event, this is my third or fourth one that I've been to. So it's one of my favorite events to go to. I like it better in person. It's easier, I think, to network, to exchange people's names through the digital or virtual version. But I miss getting, we've got to do some smaller deals being in Texas. They're letting us get together, but definitely ready for getting back. I think the last one I went to was something in early March. So it's, we're coming up close to a year of getting any kind of substantial networking events going, and it's ready for things to get back. So I appreciate you having me on. And so, if anybody wants to email, give me a shout.
Will do, Nic. Well, listen, thank you again for joining us, and we'll take all your contact information. Make sure that it's in the description of the video if you're watching this, or it's in the description of the podcast episode here. So thank you again, and we'll talk soon, man.
Thanks, Jonathan. Have a great day. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely.